Angel Reese chokes, shrinks, crumbles under the spotlight against the Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark, in her professional career, has now lost one time against Angel Reese. In fact, ever since Angel Reese followed Caitlin Clark around in that national championship game, doing the John Cena you can't see.
There are basketball games, and then there are moments. Moments that transcend the box score, that ripple beyond the final buzzer, that force an entire sport to confront hard truths it would rather ignore. The Indiana Fever's clash with the Atlanta Dream was one of those moments. It was not simply a regular season matchup. It was a referendum, a brutally honest test of two narratives that have been building in women's basketball since the moment Caitlin Clark turned professional. And when the smoke cleared, when the final numbers were tallied and the crowd had gone home, what remained was not controversy, not debate, not a coin flip. What remained was clarity. Caitlin Clark is now 5-1 in her professional career against Angel Reese. Let that settle in for a second. Before we get into the details of what unfolded on that court, you need to understand the broader context, because this game did not happen in a vacuum. The WNBA of 2025 is a fundamentally different animal than the WNBA of even 3 years ago. Arenas that once struggled to fill the lower bowl are now consistently sold out from top to bottom. Television ratings that had plateaued for the better part of a decade are now shattering records that have stood since the league's early days. Merchandise revenue is up. Sponsorship deals are richer. Broadcast packages have never been more competitive. The financial trajectory of professional women's basketball has never, not once in the history of this league, looked as promising as it does right now. And you cannot have an honest conversation about that transformation without acknowledging the single most significant variable in the equation. The Caitlin Clark effect is real, it is measurable, and it is enormous. Every night Caitlin Clark steps onto the floor, something different happens to that building.
Angel Reese warming up, shooting threes before the game. Angel Reese is shooting 40% on layups and is wasting time practicing bricking threes. SMH, get on some mic and drills, LMAO. Now my question is, what is with this leg kick? What is with this leg kick? Are we in a batter's box waiting for a pitch to come down the plate and we're loading up?
It does not matter if it is a home game or an away game, a marquee matchup or a mid-week contest. The energy shifts, the cameras multiply. The casual fan who does not follow the sport religiously suddenly tunes in, suddenly buys a ticket, suddenly cares. She has done something that no player in women's basketball has done in a generation. She has made this league appointment viewing for an entirely new demographic, and that comes with a price. Every team in this league now circles the Indiana Fever on their calendar. Every opponent has a motivation that goes beyond the win column. They want to be the team that slows her down, the team that cracks the machine, the team that can say they beat Caitlin Clark. They build marketing campaigns around her arrival. They sell tickets on the back of her presence. And when game night comes, they come loaded, emotionally, mentally, and tactically, with everything they have. The Atlanta Dream had all of that energy on this particular evening. They had the home crowd behind them. They had the electricity in the building. They had a packed arena that was ready to erupt. And they had Angel Reese, a player who, more than perhaps anyone else in the WNBA...
Shooting corner threes. Let's see if she applied it in the game, shall we? All right, here we go. Angel Reese. Maisha Hines-Allen, wide open three. Maisha Hines-Allen couldn't be playing less defense on Angel Reese right now, even if she tried. Even if she tried. Angel Reese screaming for the ball. I'm open, hit me. All right, her teammates say, all right, yeah, I guess we'll give it to you. Boom, Jordan Canada. Look at the distance between this. Look at the distance between Maisha Hines-Allen and Angel Reese. Notice how you don't see a weird, unnecessary leg kick. Not sure why she was doing that in practice. But here we go. Pull up.
The NBA has staked her identity on being the counterweight to Clark's dominance, the competitor who refuses to concede the narrative. But here is the thing about narrative. It does not survive contact with the final score. The game had not even begun and the red flags were already flying. During warm-ups, cameras caught Angel Reese spending an extended stretch of time practicing corner three-pointers. Now, ordinarily, a player working on their shooting before a game is not a story. That is just basketball, but context matters here. Angel Reese entering this game was shooting somewhere in the vicinity of 40% on basic layup attempts, not mid-range pull-ups, not contested floaters. Layups, the most fundamental finishing play in the sport. And yet, rather than spending her precious pre-game preparation time drilling close-range finishes,
Let's take a look, shall we? Jordan Canada to Angel Reese. Oh, airball. It's okay. It's okay. It happens. Raven Johnson pushing pace. Raven Johnson pushing pace. Raven Johnson pushing pace. Getting inside the teeth of the defense. Oh, to Hines Allen. Nice screen to Ryan Howard. Ryan Howard quits on the play. Ryan Howard quit last night. And Caitlin Clark.
working on mick and drill repetitions, or polishing the parts of her game that were visibly struggling, she was out on the wing firing off three-pointers. The shot itself was not exactly encouraging either. There was an unusual mechanical leg kick incorporated into her shooting motion, a physical quirk that looked completely unnatural, the kind of hitch in a release that typically signals a player trying to manufacture technique, rather than expressing one that has been built over years of repetition. It was uncomfortable to watch, not in a judgmental way, but in the way that watching someone try to force something they have not yet earned is always uncomfortable. The Indiana Fever coaching staff almost certainly saw exactly what any observant eye would have noticed. Their defensive game plan was built around a simple but devastating premise. They would dare Atlanta to beat them from the perimeter. They would sag off Reese. They would abandon her on the arc, leaving acres of space, essentially handing her the shot. And they were completely, utterly comfortable doing it, because the data said she could not make that shot consistently, and the warm-up footage was confirmation enough.
Okay. Angel got away with a double-moving screen just for Aaliyah to block her shot and CeCe to immediately throw a ridiculous dime to Kelsey. Let's take a watch, shall we? Boom. Oh, we got a moving screen. Boom, taking it to AB. Yikes. Again, blocked by... and then Angel Reese pats Michaela Timpson on the head. Tap. Oh.
It was a masterclass in preparation meeting opportunity. Indiana did not just come to play basketball. They came with a surgical blueprint, and they executed it with the calm of a team that had done this homework weeks in advance. The moment that defined the early portion of this game was not a highlight reel play. It was the absence of one. The sequence began with Atlanta running a half-court set, looking to establish some early rhythm. The ball found Angel Reese on the perimeter, exactly where Indiana's defense had been designed to funnel it. And crucially, notice the spacing. Hines Allen, who was assigned to guard her, was standing so far off that she might as well have been in a different area code. There was no contest coming. There was no help on the way. The floor was clear, the lane was open to collapse into, and Reese had a decision to make. She chose to shoot the three. She caught the pass, set her feet, gathered herself, and let it fly. And it was not close. It was not a near miss, not a shot that rimmed out, not a tough attempt that deserved more. It was a complete airball, the ball sailing wide and long without even grazing the iron, as though the basket itself had decided to make a statement. She even applied body English as the ball left her fingertips, leaning, willing it toward the hoop with the kind of desperate hope that you usually only see from fans watching a last-second Hail Mary. It missed everything. In terms of pure optics, in terms of momentum, in terms of what that moment communicated to both benches and both fan bases, the airball was catastrophic. The Atlanta crowd, which had been primed to explode, went quiet in the way that only genuine deflation produces. And before anyone could even process what had just happened, the Indiana Fever were already running. Raven Johnson pushed the pace the instant she secured possession. Atlanta's transition defense, already shaky, was completely disorganized, players drifting and losing their assignments as the pace accelerated. A screen was set. Space opened up. And then there was Caitlin Clark, reading the entire play 2 steps ahead of everyone else on the floor, gliding into her spot with the casual authority of someone who has spent her entire life doing exactly this. She pulled up and made the shot. Airball by Reese on one end. Effortless execution by Clark on the other. It happened within 10 seconds. It was a microcosm of everything, the preparation gap, the execution gap, the composure gap, all compressed into a single devastating exchange. One of the enduring arguments in Angel Reese's defense has always been physical dominance. She is a load, long, powerful, and athletically imposing. In a league where physicality matters, she should in theory be extremely difficult to deal with in the paint. The narrative around her has long leaned into the idea of a player who muscles her way to her spots, overwhelms her opposition physically, and grinds out production through sheer force of will. But Indiana had a counter for that too. Time and again throughout this game, Reese found herself matched up against Sophie Cunningham, a player who gives up several inches in height and a noticeable amount of physicality. On paper, this should have been an automatic advantage. An opportunity to simply bully the ball to the basket, absorb contact, and convert. The kind of play that does not require any particular skill development, just leverage and aggression. And she still could not finish. This is where the frustration started to creep in visibly, where the body language began to shift in ways that go beyond normal competitive emotion. Because when a player of Reese's physical profile is getting held under control by a smaller defender, the instinct to escalate, to compensate through illegitimate physical force for what is not coming naturally, becomes very real. And we started to see the consequences of that instinct. Moving screens. Not subtle, borderline screens, blatant, obvious moving screens that effectively block off defenders before they can even contest the play. Jump balls where Reese was pulling down on Aaliyah Boston's arm rather than competing cleanly for the ball. The kind of tactics that speak loudly about a player's mental state, a competitor running out of answers and searching for something, anything that can change the outcome. The officials let some of it go, but Indiana did not blink. There was one play, one single sequence, that essentially summarized this entire game in 3 seconds of basketball. Reese finally forced her way to the paint, trying to finish through traffic with the kind of aggressive determination that at least showed she had not stopped competing. But waiting at the rim was Aaliyah Boston. Boston timed the block perfectly, rising to meet the shot with clean defensive fundamentals, erasing the attempt with the kind of authority that sends a message louder than any trash talk ever could. The crowd reacted. The block was clean and emphatic. But before Atlanta could even begin to absorb the momentum of a defensive stop, the ball was already moving the other direction. Caitlin Clark, who had been reading the play while it developed, secured the loose possession immediately. No hesitation, no survey of the floor, just one look, one decision, and then a full-court laser pass, threading the defense, splitting 2 defenders, and landing perfectly in Kelsey Mitchell's hands for an easy basket. Block, rebound, pass, basket. 3 seconds. The entirety of the emotional swing that Atlanta had hoped to manufacture, absorbed and converted into 2 points the other direction. That is not basketball luck. That is not one team getting hot while another goes cold. That is the product of a superior system, superior preparation, and a generational talent at its center making decisions in real time that most players cannot even process while standing still. Numbers are not everything in basketball. There are games where the statistics do not capture what actually happened, where the flow and feel of the contest tell a truer story than the box score. This was not one of those games. Angel Reese finished with 11 points on 4 of 9 shooting. She turned the ball over 4 times. She was a -8 in her time on the floor. For a player in a rivalry game in a packed building against a team she has spoken about competing with throughout her career, this was a no-show, not a tough night. Not a player who competed hard, but the shots did not fall. A no-show. Caitlin Clark, meanwhile, orchestrated an Indiana victory that was never truly in question once the opening quarter established the tone. Her fingerprints were everywhere in the transition offense, in the pick-and-roll execution, in the defensive pressure that forced Atlanta into uncomfortable decisions, and of course in the signature moments that cut through any remaining doubt. 5 wins and 1 loss in professional matchups against Angel Reese. The rivalry between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese was not invented by the media. It has genuine roots. The national championship game, the gestures, the narrative tension, the way women's basketball used their dynamic to explode into the cultural mainstream. That backstory is real, and it mattered. But a rivalry requires competition. It requires tension, genuine uncertainty about who will come out on top, the realistic possibility that either player could impose their will on a given night. And right now, the honest assessment of this particular matchup, not as a cultural storyline but as a basketball contest, is that there is a meaningful, visible, and widening gap. Preparation separates competitors at this level. The WNBA is evolving at a speed that punishes stagnation. What worked last year might not be enough this year. The scouting is better, the schemes are more sophisticated, and the margin for underdevelopment in any part of your game is shrinking to almost nothing. Indiana's coaching staff identified a specific vulnerability in Angel Reese's offensive arsenal, designed a defense around it, and watched her walk into the trap during warm-ups. Execution separates performers. Showing up in the big game means more than being physically present. It means having the mental clarity to make good decisions under maximum pressure, to adjust when a plan is not working, to recognize what the defense is giving you, and take it rather than forcing the action you came in wanting to take. Clark does this on nearly every possession. It is what makes her dangerous even on nights when her shot is not falling, because her decision-making and court vision generate advantages that go beyond her own statistics, and composure separates champions. Lights do not lie. When the moment gets biggest, when the crowd is loudest and the margin for error is smallest, what a player is made of becomes visible in a way that no regular season performance can fully capture. Clark has proven repeatedly and across the most scrutinized environments in modern women's basketball that she does not shrink. She does not tighten. She expands. The road forward, none of this means Angel Reese's career is over or that she cannot grow into a more complete. She is young. She has genuine physical gifts that are not going away. The rebounding instincts, the relentless motor, the willingness to compete in contact, those are real. But desire and potential only translate into results when they are paired with honest development. You cannot manufacture a three-point shot in warm-ups before the biggest game of your year. You cannot compensate for a finishing deficit by pulling on opponents' arms on jump balls. The work has to happen before the game, not during it. Atlanta, as a franchise, needs to look hard at what they are building and whether the pieces around Reese are giving her the best chance to become the player they need her to be. Indiana, meanwhile, is a genuine threat, not just to win games, but to redefine what success looks like in the modern WNBA. They are built around a generational talent who makes everyone around her better, surrounded by players who understand their roles and execute them with the kind of discipline that comes from a coaching staff that clearly knows exactly what it is doing. The WNBA has a new standard, and the Indiana Fever, night after night, game after game, are the ones setting it. The spotlight does not lie. The only question left is who is ready to stand in it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Who impressed you most in this matchup, and what does Indiana need to do to keep this momentum rolling? Hit subscribe for more breakdowns, no hot takes, just the honest truth.